Hey, y'all. Wow. Blue skies everywhere, baby. Here on the Coyote Medicine Show, the place where you come to get your heart set free. Oh, can't you see, can't you be alive in this great sunrise inside? This morning here on the Hazy Radio Network, Grandpaw Koyote helping you get it just right. Oh, hey, talking about taking flight. While old Uncle Cracker was singing about blue skies, I was seeing a particularly bright moment way in the way back when, man. I was 1920 again, you know what I mean? And I was, a young dude in the theatrical business, and I was going places, and I knew it, And they just dumped this whole little snake den on me called Boise, Idaho, and I'd just become the district manager of a unit of a theatrical exhibition company that's rather well known. So I thought I was really going places. In fact, I knew I was. I was going to rise up here and, do a beautiful job in Boise, Idaho, and then it was Hollywood, man, Well, not exactly. I was too chicken to go to L.A., but I knew there'd be something coming my way that I would get into the movie business like I wanted to be. The theater thing was just a stepping stone, but oh my God, it stepped on me. Here I was, a little 20-year-old kid, bright and bristling. Most of you just going to college and drinking beer and smoking marijuana and, chasing the girls and boys around and having a great time doing it, Well, shit, I did a little of that too, despite my incredible workload. I mean, I was 18-hour a day, man, and 6 hours to play, and I had a great time doing it because it was all play 24 hours a day. I was on a roll, baby. I was happy, but I was getting buried. Oh, God, was I getting buried. The deeper I got into that Boise, Idaho operation, the more the snakes tried to surround me and bite me and choke me off and stuff. And, man, the paperwork was stacking up on my desk. I could barely get a payroll done, and get everybody paid. I had like 250 individual employees or so, somewhere in that neighborhood, and I do payroll for every one of them. Me, myself, I didn't have a secretary to assist, and I got to thinking, this is what I'm going to need, because I am never going to get through this stack of paperwork, let alone, I was just doing the, the prioritizing thing, the stuff that, the squeaky wheel, the thing that made the most noise, that's what got attention paid to it. And of course, the day-to-day operation had to have its flow, so, I stuck with that too, and, I found ways of motivating employees to assist in greater detail and in a more efficient way because they come up with it. I was kind of a communalist back in those days, as I would call myself. And I was really trying to practice the principles of treating each other decent for a change, And so I wanted everybody to know, even though you're only working for $1.25 in Boise, Idaho, babies, this is the way to go because I respect you and I want you to be the best you can possibly be. And, of course, we got to get along with the company, the assholes with the accounting departments and all the paperwork. Whew. Boy, it can be a lot, too, babies. Even for $1.25 employee, it's quite a bit. Candy counter girls and cashiers, oh, God. They make them responsible for the bank's errors. You know what I mean? It's just crazy shit. They really pick on their employees, as a lot of those big companies tend to do. So I was trying to modify that effect, and let the employees know how much we loved them. Of course, there were spies in the company, in the union and so forth, reporting back to the big shots in Salt Lake City and New York City about my activities, and there was some eyebrows being raised on some pretty bald heads, let me tell you. And I didn't let it faze me one little bit. I just knew I was going places. You couldn't mess with me. But I also knew I was buried and getting wrecked. So somehow or another, I caught those guys' attention and said, hey, look, I got to have a secretary, man. I'm buried here. You see my workload. Look at what I'm doing here. And they had to accommodate me, cheapskates that they are. They had to accommodate me. So, I set out on this little search for a secretarial type person to assist me in this major, overwhelming operation. And I wound up getting a partner that was with me, pretty much 24/7, at least 18 hours of it anyway, depending on what was happening in the reality. But I'll never forget the day she walked into my office. there in Boise, Idaho, with my 3 feet of paperwork stacked up in 2 or 3 piles on my desk. And she looked at me and smiled, and instantly there was this connection. Of course, she was gorgeous too, you know. I don't know what to call her, but I'll give her a name. Let's just call her Star for the moment, because that's what she was. She was my little star, man. Ooh, I tell you. But she came in, and, you know, I knew immediately that this was the chick I was looking for. She came from some employment agency or something like that, so I had to kind of help her dodge around that, because I ain't going to pay those guys. Those places are so expensive, you can't afford them, man. You know, they charge triple or quadruple what they're paying their people to go work for you and skim all the rest of it into their pocket. It's a dirty little thing, man, you know. Well, there are some out there that are far more reasonable than that, and they're good people, and there's nothing wrong with an employment agency, but most of them back in those days especially were really scalawaggy, because there wasn't much regulation of it, you know. So we helped to get around that, but at the same time, you know, I had to go through the process, because I had other applicants too, and you know, you can't say, okay, it's it, but guess what, I did anyway. You know, after we talked, it was like the sunlight. Just all of a sudden, when she came into my office, it was like all of a sudden there's all this light around. You know, there's illumination through these tiny little windows that face the street out there, you know, where I can overlook my kingdom. Oh, shit. But babies, you know, there was a connection made there that first moment, like I said. And we really worked well together. I mean, we were like the right and left hand, and we learned how to coordinate our efforts. And, you know, I wouldn't wake up till noon, because I'd be working and partying until the wee hours of the day, you know. So, you know, I'd sleep basically, you know, a few hours in the mid-morning there, you know, and get up at noon and get on my day underway again, you know. Usually one of the first things I'd have to do is meet with the TV and radio people and start arranging our various little efforts and productions for the day, because we had a lot of that kind of shit going on, both in advertising and promotions and so forth. So, you know, hell, I was a busy guy right from the minute I hit the breakfast table there at lunchtime. She would come by. You know, I was staying in this hotel, and she would come by, and of course she had a key and could come in, and I would wake up to her smiling face, and, you know, her arm gently soothing her hand gently soothing my shoulder or something like that, and she'd pour me out a little coffee and whiskey, and I'd slug it down and throw my clothes on, and, you know, I'd hit the shower first. But anyway, you know what I mean. Then we'd go get lunch or breakfast, you know, and that's where we'd start off with the TV and radio reps, you know, at least within that time frame. I tried to, you know, configure my time so I got multiple uses out of it. And if somebody didn't show up or something, well, that's also where she and I began planning out the day. Had to look at what we had on the plate and then, you know, knock them down one at a time. I had this real pain-in-the-ass building project going on, a multi-million-dollar job that was kind of stalled when I inherited it. Well, I'd got it moving, but oh, God, it was tricky business, man. And this gal, with her smile and her charm, could melt the hardest of hearts. You know, when I applied her energies in situations like that, you know, not all the time, but sometimes it was necessary. And so I would let her have a little say-so or two, you know. In other words, we were partners. And we kind of functioned, like I said, like a right and left hand. We had this kind of psychic connection, though I wouldn't call it that. Then, you know, I would have been afraid of such terminology. But I knew we were connected because we could think back and forth and move accordingly. You know, we were a coordinated movement. It was an amazing experience. I wasn't married to this girl. And, you know, yeah, I did sleep with her a little bit, but not much. You know, it was just very casual in those days, but a very great love between us, and that's why I restrained myself somewhat. Because, geez, I had a wife and 2 kids already down in the other town they'd moved me up from, but they hadn't moved them. You know, they knew what was going on. Just trying to bait me and hook me forever, you know. It almost worked, too, you know. But I'll never forget, like, that day, that shining day. And, you know, that's when things started to come together for me then, you know. And, of course, it never goes the way you think it will, but it worked out perfectly in the long run. And, you know, ultimately I wound up going back to driving truck, man, a few years after that, you know, because that's where the simple life was, you know. But it was good to know that I was capable of such things. I could rise up in these corporate realities, Wasn't too long after that I did some kind of, it was an awkward transfer, but I did a sideways lateral kind of thing and wound up number 2 man. What was it? Yeah, I got my terminology, man. My ego was so proud. Vice president in charge of distribution. Number 2 man in the company, because I'm the cash register. I'm the dude that brings in the dough. Well, I did it both ways, too. I did distribution, and I did fundraising for financing a feature-length film. I did a little of both. I worked both sides of it. Well, I did all kinds of things. You always do. I was always a creative kind of guy like that. I didn't do it for the glory, though. I did take a little out of it, but I did it mainly for the pure pleasure of it. I was delighted to be a part of the movie business. I'd always been fascinated with those things ever since The Wizard of Oz and all those special effects. I was just a kid 4 or 5 years old when I first saw that. I was swept off my feet by Dorothy and Toto, I was totally in love. And I knew I was the wizard. I knew I was, man. I knew I could pull them levers and fake people out and do all that shit, But I was a hell of a lot more friendly than that, you know what I mean? I didn't want to hide behind no curtain. I didn't want to fake it. I wanted to put it right in your face and perform magic all the time. And that's what I was doing back there when that young lady showed up. I just, I didn't realize how great my creative powers were. That's what got me. I could bullshit my way into anything. That's what got me where I was, 20 freaking years old, and running, like it was several theaters and 250 employee operation and another major multi-million-dollar construction project going on. Big old advertising budgets I had to deal with, etc. Cantankerous employees here, the situations all the time. People thieving from us, palming tickets, kids, shit. You're paying them $1.25 an hour. They're going to find some way to increase that, aren't they? Well, that was a lot of money back then for a kid, but it still was a shit wage, man. Crap. It's like working for $7.50 or $8 now. It's nothing, It won't even buy you a cup of coffee hardly anymore. Last time I looked down here at the Blitz Cafe, as I call it, coffee's $2.20 now. For coffee. Gee whiz. Of course, it's organic and it would never sink the Titanic because it's awesome stuff, but for $2.20, it goddamn well better be, wouldn't you say? Just like we better be on this Free Day Friday, as we put all of our vast experience into play. Start to remember those creative moments in that creative way. The way you can conjure people and moments up just by desiring them from the heart level. You see, I didn't realize it then. I did it kind of intrinsically, just kind of an under the surface, yet I was kind of conscious of it too. I knew psychically that I was putting out some kind of call. I could feel it. I could feel the radiance of it going through me, especially when I was high, Ooh, we used to smoke those licorice-flavored papers with some really awesome Colombian up there in Boise, Idaho. Oh, my God. You would be flying, Oh, it was great to hit them. My day didn't end till about 2 in the morning, and that's when I could finally go toke a J. And right next door, there just happened to be a feller that was a friend of somebody, and, there we were smoking these licorice-flavored joints. And then I would commute from there to downtown Boise to a round table where we always had a little party going on down there, And it was in a Denny's, of all things, downtown Boise, Idaho. There'd be like 16, 20 people there, off and on all night long till way 6, 8 in the morning. Then I'd have to go back to the hotel and grab a little sleep, I wasn't totally incredible Superman just yet, Yeah. But you sure would have thought I would have incredible energy. When I loved what I was doing, I was go, go, go. That was everything to me, And I didn't realize, and I sit here and look at it now, and I see that moment. That's what I was seeing during that last song. I seen that moment when that girl stepped in my office. The lights just went on, It was like, wow. And now I see it, from a little different level, a little different way. I understand how my heart, not the ego, my heart, in order to benefit me and bless me, created this moment, you see. There are so many moments like that in life. In fact, when you start to look at them, they're all like that. And lights are coming on everywhere. Some of the hardest moments are some of the most profoundly curative for your soul. You know, if there ever was a wrinkle in your soul, this earth place is the place where you get it straightened out. That's why we love being here, you know. You don't leave here iniquitous. You leave here ascended. It's as simple as that. You're in it until that happens. You just keep coming back again and again. And you'll always have that little grin on your face, and you'll always know it's your little rock and roll medicine show. You're starting to catch on now, see? That's why I'm seeing moments like that little story I just told you, man. Oh, God, I wish it could have lasted forever, but like everything, it don't. But, God, it was beautiful. I think we were working together for about 1.5 years. It was awesome, man. Gee, had a great time with that. You know, it's funny. And like I said, we were, you know, very close in every way, but at the same time, you know, we weren't like lovers. We were a little step beyond that. You know, we were more than deeply empowered friends. We were cohabitators in the energy of love, you know, and experiencing synchronicity very early on in my life. You know, I didn't know such things were possible before that. Though I did have a pretty good relationship with my old lady of the time. But, oh, I was so far removed from that. This workaday world can do some strange things to you. You can see, yeah, see. Ooh, but we all wound up blessed. We all wound up being where we need to be and doing what we need to do, you know. And, you know, when old Star moved on, and I had to move on. That's what happened, was I moved on, you know, and it was the end of it for both of us, because the company was mad at me at the time. We had a little situation going on, and you know, I was moving on, and it happened rather suddenly. I'd given my notice, but they said, oh, we noticed you'd given your notice, and says, you can just get the hell out of here. What a mess. But we got it all straightened out. But that's where she had to depart my life for a while. And, you know, it's a funny thing. You know, I always remembered her. I always carried her in my heart. But, you know, I knew it wasn't realistic or practical to think anything more would ever come of it, because, you know, I had my old lady already. I had my kids, you know, and I wasn't quite the bigamist yet. I tried that a little later. You do everything, you know, one time or another if you're living an experiential life. But, you know, it's really like, you know, it really got me back to my family a whole lot after a while. But in the meantime, a little rough on them, because they never saw me. Shoot, I'd be home 20 minutes and be gone again, back on the airplane, flying this way, that, going back to do that, you know. When you got a lot on your plate, you know, you can let it really distract you. You know, I used to watch this happen to my daddy when I was a little kid. You know, my daddy was incredibly busy. He like had all these farms going on that he had to take care of. He had a ranch he had to take care of. He was also in the water department on the city council. He had to manage that a little bit, you know, et cetera, you know. And then he had positions in the church as well. Of course, what else would he be? You know, but son of a gun, the guy was just on the go all the damn time, you know. And I, you know, it was rare, but yet somehow we found family time too. I don't know how this guy did it. He was an incredible juggler of time, I'll tell you. But always on the go. My mother too, you know, no wonder. What a mess. But, you know, here I was, young kid, and man, I've just got that same energy going on. You know, I'm not taking care of farms and ranches. I'm farming and harvesting a whole different crop. And having a great time doing it, babies, too. But like I said, in the end, I wound up going back when I was 23. Yeah, when I was 23, I went back to trucking, man. You know, that's when I started the long haul stuff. I hadn't done over the mountains. Yeah, that's, you know, short long haul. But, you know, no, when you start going out for days on end and so forth, that's when I started the long haul with the big trucks. Yeah. Well, I still drove the big trucks anyway, but that's what I did part-time. Even, you know, when I was being the movie executive, I found time to go take a run or two for the old man, go get a load of coal and drive it over the mountains. I just loved my trucks. I never could let go of that. And trucks and machinery in general, airplanes too. I mean, I had a love affair with them. They were just awful expensive for the places I held in life. I couldn't always afford them. But when I could, baby, I was out there flying, believe me. I love my machinery. I love, especially the old 18-wheelers. That's the hardest thing about having to retire, was to know that I would never really, you know, I might do it a little bit here and there just as for a favor to somebody, but I would never really be behind the wheel of an 18-wheeler again. And I'd done 3 million miles by that time. 3 million miles. That's what's between me and that little experience I told you about. 3 million miles and a whole bunch of fun. Whole bunch of craziness too, whole bunch of stress, of course, but you get through it. You work it out. It's a beautiful process. It's hard as hell when you go through it like I have. It'll tear your heart apart and put it back together 16 gazillion times. Every time you turn around, your whole world is reformatting, and you got that lead in your ass going, say, oh my God, the heart's getting heavy, blah, blah, blah. But that's when the most profound changes occur, man. You just sometimes have to go through that, and I had to. I would go through the depths of that hell. I would feel every bit of it. But you know what? I would never really accept it. I stayed the party boy, man, even in my worst and most depressing times. I would associate with friendly ass people. They'd be drawn to me. See, I was creating my reality. It was always a party everywhere me and the ex of that time lived. Everywhere we went, it was always a party. And we moved around a bit. It was always a party, man. No matter what else was going on in the world, the economic thing, shoot. I never had much luck with that or much fun with it either, but then I did after a few years. I just had to get through these rougher points and learn how to moderate and so how to function in this reality and not let it take you down with it, Take some time and a whole lot of story like some that I've been telling, and I'll probably tell you a whole lot more before we're done here on this Coyote Medicine Show, here on this Hazy Radio Network, babies. Ooh, yeah. Don't you just dig it? Life is full of surprises, The reason why is probably because that's blossoming into being that little story. Because, I'm in a similar time right now, but I'm nowhere near as overwhelmed as I was there in Boise, Idaho, many, that's the late 60s, babies, mid to late 60s, yeah. So anyway, to give you a time frame, that's how long ago that was. You probably weren't even born yet, most of you anyway. Some of you were. You're the ones that made the other listeners we got listening in, the children of the children, man. Darlings, we just stay with it. We just stay in the flow. And, and here we are. Like I said, I flowed right into a very similar moment as when I was 19, 20 years old and needed some serious help getting myself organized. Same way here and now. I can do so much. I do have a bit of an organizational mind, but I'm lazy and I'm busy. And I only want to do so much, my main focus, as always in these days, is, the essential process of the movement forward in love we call ascension, or the gaining of the heart's consciousness, the awakening, the awareness of our truthful place in creation. That's my primary effort, no matter what. And I'm more focused on that than I ever was on the movie biz, believe me. And I loved what I was doing then. Same way I love what I'm doing now, only far more profoundly, and far more expansively. It's rich now. Back then I was just a kid grabbing for whatever I could get, Now, I'm kind of like on this side of it, on the other side of the mountain where the grass is greener always. Of course it is, man, and it's taller too, and it's really pleasant to graze on. It was worth the effort that it took to get over the mountain, but I'm on this side of it now, you see. And in my way of looking at it, so is humanity, as a group, as a collective. I think we're already over the mountain, and I think we found the pass, and I think we got through it just fine, thank you very much. I'll tell you the past story sometime. Remind me to do that. That's my great-grandfather's story. It's in The Atomic Bum by Coyote Bear. Available on Amazon. Got to throw that in every now and then. Can't forget them commercial aspects. But it's not commercial with me. I just like to invite my close friends to share my lives with me, so we can all remember together. And The Atomic Bum, that book that I mentioned, it's the beginning of that process for many people, or a recognition of the ongoing process, etc. It can aid you greatly. I mean, it's a bit childish, it's a bit humorous in a very dark and biting sort of way, yet it's the reality we all live in. It's the truth of humanity, exhibited in personal forms through personal stories. Babies, it'll help chew you up if you approach it with this heartfelt attitude, in this heartfelt way. Those funny little words, if you got time for such things, those funny little words will help greatly with your awakening. Just like my funny little tales here on the Coyote Medicine Show do, babies. See how we're in for each other, always, no matter what we're doing? And if you just follow this flow, so this is one thing I kind of caught on to when I was a kid. I couldn't always hold to, but I sure tried. You got to enjoy what you're doing. If you're not happy with it, you got to find something you are. Get the hell out of there, you know. And that's the way I was. I wouldn't let this life regulate me. I regulated the life. So I got my ass kicked a lot because of that attitude. But babies, I look at it now and I bless it because, you know, I see that's what caused me to survive, or at least one of the main factors, because I was able to find work for myself that was enjoyable and didn't sell me out to complete slavery, even though I was one hell of a good slave, let me tell you, baby. I'd work incredible. I've been that way all my life. I guess I inherited that from my daddy and my granddaddy and all of those, you know, pioneers before that, you know. And, you know, on the other sides, too, you know, it goes right back to some indigenous blood here and there. I mean, you know, we got everybody's thing in us now. You know, it was bust your butt for many centuries, like my daddy did. Only he did it in a more modern, mechanized way. But his daddy before him, my grandfather, he's a working fool. You had to be, sun up to sundown and then some. You know what I mean? You just really, you know, that was survival in those days, you see. These days we've mechanized and automated a lot of it, so we don't have to put in the energy that we used to have. We've got more time to be in our own energy, believe it or not. Nobody has to work hard like that anymore. I never looked at it as hard work. I looked at it as pleasurable. And if it got to be drudgery, guess what? I found something else to do. So should you. Right now. Just allow this heart's intelligence to lead the way. Follow the flow. Be the flow. Notice how you've been creating your life. Notice those moments where it's real recognizable, like I do. These moments of awakening, you know, a little moment comes to you. It's a flash of memory. It's there to help you remember, there to help you understand something. And get on the move, don't you know? Just like we do here on the Coyote Medicine Show. Sun coming up inside now, I bet you. Hey, I think it's coming up down in Panama, too. How about you, man?